At the same tech briefing, in a response to a question by Stephen Jones, it became clear that it is John Gross and his team who came up with the 5.4 second measurement to match the requirements of their model. I tracked back from the video frame in which the roof line reached the 29th floor to see when NIST started their clock. Here is the 5.4 second interval that corresponds to NIST's measurement. So this was exactly the 5.4 second interval here. Okay. Now, it's a little bit clearer if you go backwards, and notice when this reaches about the horizon here, notice when you would start the clock if you wanted to do an honest timing of the descent of the building. And notice when they started the clock. That's the 5.4 second timing starting then, as you can see. I mean, would you want John Gross timing your child's race at a high school track meet? The only justification I can see for choosing the start time they did is because it yields a 5.4 second collapse time to match their prediction of their computer model. Whatever the rationale for measuring that particular start time, measuring from that particular start time, applying the constant acceleration formula to the entire interval is clearly erroneous. Measuring only the start and stop time is itself grossly inappropriate when there is any question of the uniformity of the motion. The appropriate method is to measure position versus time throughout the motion. Given that NIST knows what they're doing, we would be justified in calling their methodology fraudulent. Fraudulent behavior in this context constitutes participation in a criminal cover-up.
Our calculation was based on the amount of time from the top of the parapet to fall till it disappeared from view between the two buildings seen in the video. That time was established from the video by a single frame search of the time, so that was down to 1/30th of a second, and then we did the same thing for when the top of the parapet disappeared. We found that time to be 5.4 seconds.
Got this a little out of order, sorry about that. That should have come a second ago. All right. The appropriate method, okay, got that. All right. In November 2008, that's last November, NIST released their final version of their WTC7 report. Much to the surprise of everyone in the 9/11 truth community, they revised their analysis of the collapse. This time, they did a frame-by-frame analysis similar to the one I had done. They even explicitly acknowledged absolute free fall for 2.25 seconds. That's what they call stage 2 here. By the way, my measurement was of the northwest corner of the building. Their measurement was for a point near the middle that sagged a little before the building cut loose into a complete free fall, which accounts for the difference in timing, the slight difference. Also, their graph is upside down relative to mine, but that's really not an issue. Mysteriously, the fiction of a 5.4 second collapse interval is retained in the final report. This time it is described as a 3-stage collapse sequence whose total duration is 5.4 seconds. In stage 1, the roof is nearly stationary, as you saw earlier. In stage 2, the building undergoes 2.25 seconds of absolute freefall. In stage 3, the building transitions to a slower downward acceleration. This new analysis completely invalidates the analysis of the August 2008 report, which was transparently constructed to deny freefall. The amazing thing is the original analysis is retained in the final text as though nothing is amiss. The new analysis is simply appended, described as a more detailed examination. NIST concludes, as noted above, the collapse time was approximately 40% longer than the free fall for the first 18 stories of descent. The detailed analysis shows that this increased time is due primarily to stage 1, The 3 stages of collapse progression described above are consistent with the results of the global collapse analysis discussed in Chapter 12 of NIST NC Star 1-9. That's it. You can read NC Star 1-9, but it sheds no new light on the situation. Out of all this, we can conclude that a period of free fall or something over 2 seconds, equivalent to about 100 feet or 8 stories, can now be considered an uncontested fact. The implications are huge. In Shyam Sundar's own words, a free fall time would be an object that has no structural components below it. There was structural resistance that was provided in this particular case, and you had a sequence of structural failures that had to take place, and everything was not instantaneous. A free-falling object is converting all of its potential energy into kinetic energy. Therefore, none of its energy is available to do any work on the underlying structure. Any work done along the way must be subtracted from the kinetic energy, which would slow the fall. This is a known controlled demolition, by the way. Even a weakened structure requires energy to demolish it. That's why NIST initially denied free fall. Ordinary controlled demolitions fall significantly slower than free fall because the falling section of the building is allowed to do work by crushing the remaining structure. Notice the slope here, where its initial near free fall is only 7.69 meters per second squared, which is about 2/3 to 3/4 of the acceleration of gravity. And that's you can see they just collapsed out the center section of the building. Okay. I know. Ordinarily controlled demolitions fall significantly slower than free fall because the falling section of the building is allowed to do work by crushing the remaining structure. In the case of WTC-7, they did not do this. For 100 feet of free fall to take place, they had to completely remove 8 floors of structural support, uniformly across the entire width of the building, about 100 meters, by the way, simultaneously to within a fraction of a second. This cannot happen naturally. It's a clear smoking gun for controlled demolition. In conclusion, on the first round, NIST falsified measurements in order to deny free fall, because, as Shyam Sundar explained, free fall for a natural collapse is impossible. They then turned around and admitted free fall, but denied its significance. Nothing NIST says in its convoluted analysis can accommodate actual free fall. Free fall requires that explosives had to have been used. Planting explosives in WTC-7 would require time and high-level access to this very secure building well before 9/11. Whoever rigged WTC-7 was clearly complicit in the entire 9/11 operation. Free fall, it turns out, is no small matter. We need to hear Shyam Sundar, John Gross, and many others from NIST explain their reasoning one more time, but this time under oath. By the way, it is commonplace for my high school students to ask, when will we ever need this? I hope I've clarified that as well.